There we go. All right, so it is almost 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'm going to go ahead and get this workshop, this lunch and learn started. So, of course, a little bit about DMV Business Crossing Network. We are a business organization that is all about connecting people for success. So, wherever you are in your business journey, whether you are getting started, whether you are expanding, whether you are growing your business, wherever you are in that process, Business Crossing Network is here to just help you have the resources and the information and the people you need to succeed. So, one of the amazing features that we have are quarterly trainings, and sometimes they're in person, and other times they are virtual, as we are doing today. And so, this is one of our Lunch and Learn Ask the Expert series. And so, I am super excited to get started. And one of the things that many of our members were saying that they wanted more information about is business bookkeeping and taxes and all those things, none of which is very exciting or fun for me personally. But I am glad that we have among us in Business Crossing Network someone who gets very excited about that topic. So, Maya is going to be leading us in a discussion today. Definitely be sure to drop your questions, your thoughts in the chat. And then afterward, Maya will share information on just how you can work with her directly and reach out to her personally. If you're like me and you really just don't even want to deal with it at all and you want someone else to do it. So, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our presenter for today, Maya Robinson.
Thank you so much for having me today. And it's nice to meet you all. My name is Maya Robinson, and I'm the owner of Future Proof Accounting. And I started in accounting. I have my master's degree, and I work for the federal government as an accountant for 10 years. So today is more of an intro. Um, I'm going to talk about bookkeeping, and some points about payroll, taxes. Um, I'm going to go into QuickBooks. So I'm going to share my screen and just show some things, how that works in there. And um, there'll be some time to ask me some questions at the end. So I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm just going to talk. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. But also there'll be time to ask me later. So I'm going to start off with um, what does a bookkeeper do in a practical sense? I'm sure that you have heard of bookkeeping and you probably have an idea of what they do, but what am I actually doing is I work with QuickBooks, and if you don't have QuickBooks, I would help you set it up, and I would help you create a chart of accounts. A chart of accounts means the categories that are very important in QuickBooks that show what your income is, what your expenses are. For example, you might have advertising, you want to put it in that category, and then everything else that is that expense in the category. And eventually you put it all together and you have um, a file. And so I would also help you connect your credit card and your bank accounts in QuickBooks. And that's what brings expenses in. And so I look at those numbers and I make sure that everything is correct. I monitor them. And then if you have anything that you buy during the year, say you buy a fridge, that's an asset, and I would depreciate it. So the result of all these actions that I'm doing on a regular basis is you end up with financial statements. So that is what I do. depending on what services you want. I can do other things like invoices and paying sales tax, but that is what my day-to-day work is like. And what if you were to hire a bookkeeper, that's what they're doing. If you were to learn bookkeeping, that's what you're doing. You're looking at QuickBooks file and going, okay, these are my expenses, where they go, so that I have a neat profit and loss at the end of the month. So what is the point of bookkeeping? Why would you want that? So people come to me for different reasons. When you're ready for a loan, they're going to ask you for financial statements. When you are going to apply for a grant, they might ask you for financial statements or budgeting. If you want to bid on a contract, and then there's other things that you can do. Once you have your file, you can look at it and say, okay, I know in my head that every September my uh, income goes up. But when you have your file, you can actually look at it and say, okay, this is actually going up for real. I can see that. And that's called forecasting. It's called cash flow trends. Um, so different ways of looking at that. Bookkeeping also helps you be ready to do your taxes. Once you have the QuickBooks file, you can either give your tax person your financial statements, or you can give them the actual file. And then all they have to do is data entry. They don't have to ask any questions. It's done. It's super easy. Um, you also might want to have but a bookkeeper or do bookkeeping so that you're ready for an audit. Sometimes it happens, and I'll go over a couple of reasons why that might happen later. Um, so that you're ready and you have all your statements available, and you're not trying to go through Excel spreadsheets trying to figure out what they want from you. I'd say the biggest reason people need a bookkeeper is because eventually, if things are going well, you're going to start to lose track. So if you have, you know, you're not going to be able to keep track of every expense in your mind. At some point, you need to have it recorded regularly. So, moving on. So, when do you need a bookkeeper? I would say people should come to me when they're making about $50,000 in annual income. Um, you can come earlier, but it's okay to wait. Um, what I see happen a lot is that people come to me and they've tried to mess around with QuickBooks and they mess it up, and then they're frustrated because you have to pay to fix it. So I would say it's okay to wait. Just use your Excel until you are completely ready to hand it off, or you're ready to learn uh, QuickBooks and accounting yourself. And also, I'm mentioning QuickBooks a lot. QuickBooks is what most bookkeepers use. I think QuickBooks software has 95% market share. So that is the most common one. It's what most people know how to use. There are other ones, but I don't know how to use it, and most people don't. Let's see. So next topic is commingling. So commingling is when you put your business expenses in your personal account, or use your personal account for your business expenses. So what happens is that the IRS can look at that and say, huh, these business expenses look like they're personal. We can disallow that and make you give the money, you know, you can't reduce your income with that anymore. So you have to be very careful. If you're just making a few $1,000s a year, I don't think it's a big deal, but you do want to get a business account at some point so that everything is tidy, and don't use your business account for anything else. That's really important because people get in trouble for that all the time. Um, and also, another point about the IRS is that if you don't have any income for about 3 years, then the IRS will consider that a hobby, and they can also disallow your expenses and make you not be able to use that to decrease your income. Let's see, payroll. Don't do it yourself. You don't want to do that manually. If you're ready to pay other people, super easy to use ADP, super to use, easy to use paychecks. Just go ahead and do it. Nobody needs to do that manually. I don't know how to do it. And it's a little bit cheaper to hire one of these companies like Paychex, ADP. Um, so let's see. Yeah, before I go to make some points about taxes, is there any, let me look at the chat. Yeah, I don't see any questions. So I'm gonna move on and make a couple points about taxes. Okay, so taxes. So I don't do taxes, but I can tell you a couple of things that I see business owners get tripped up on, like a couple tips and tricks. Because what happens is that most people get an LLC and they think that that will lower their taxes. LLC doesn't do anything to lower your taxes. So what ends up happening, say you're making $80,000 and you have an LLC, all of your profit you have to pay um, the Social Security and the Medicare, all those taxes on that, on the whole thing. So you end up paying a lot in taxes. And LLC doesn't do anything to protect that. So at some point, if you're making good money, you might want to consider switching to an S corp. And so when should you consider switching to an S corp? I'd say about $80,000. And what happens is you have to pay yourself a salary once you switch to an S corp. So say you paid $50,000 in expenses, you have 80,000 income, you paid 50,000 expenses, you paid yourself say 2,000 for the year, and then 38 is just sitting there. If you have an S corp, you only have to pay taxes on the 2,000. So you can see how it saves a lot of money. And I see a lot of business owners get stressed because they're paying a lot of taxes and they're thinking, well, maybe I just need more deductions. But the issue is, are you an LLC or are you an S corp? And I think that if you're making $8,000, you should be talking to somebody, talking to a tax strategist to help you anyway, and they can walk you through how to do that. A couple pitfalls with an S corp: you have to make the election by March 15th, and you have to make sure that you're paying yourself enough so that the IRS isn't triggered. Because if the IRS thinks that you're paying yourself too little, then that can trigger an audit. Okay, so
We have a
um,
question in the chat,
yeah.
Maya. We have the question, how do your clients provide you the information you need to do their bookkeeping throughout the month?
So they don't typically have to give me a whole lot. It depends on the client. I have one client who she had already connected her bank account and her credit card account. So that's already in QuickBooks. And then she had the bank make a password for me to get in to get her financial statements. And so in terms of the regular bookkeeping stuff, she doesn't need to give me anything during the month, but things come up. And I think that's really important to point out is that things regularly come up. There's a bank error. She um, overpaid her taxes. So I had to take all the refunds and make sure that they're in the right account. Um, she wanted to uh, upgrade her payroll. So I helped her with that. So there's a lot of incidental things that come up where then she needs to give me stuff. Um, but if there is if the actual logistics is I use something called Keeper.app, and what it does is this software where you can upload anything like receipts you can upload directly into QuickBooks. You just take a picture of it, email it to QuickBooks, and then that's the difference. And that's super easy if you want to do that. But there's also Keeper, which I use if you want to send me anything. It's really good if you have a specific issue. A lot of things that happen, a lot of times what happens is that I see a transaction and say it's a check. Say you paid a check. It doesn't say on the check what it is. So I have to ask you. So the way I ask you is I can go into Keeper and ask for that specific transaction, what it is, and then you can tell me through Keeper, and that makes it super easy. So that's how I get things. Um, so I got another question. Okay, so excellent, thanks. Um, are there differences for nonprofits, and do you handle bookkeeping for that? I do handle bookkeeping for nonprofits. So bookkeeping is like a special unicorn. I have everybody on QuickBooks, of course, but every single client uses it differently. So, for example, I have a client that's both a movie theater and a nonprofit at the same time. So that's not going to be similar to other nonprofits. So they're very different. And so I'd say there's more businesses and nonprofits can have more in common than say different nonprofits. So every everything is unique. Yes, I do bookkeeping for restaurants as well. Okay. Any other questions?
We have one coming in, it looks like from Olga. I saw a hand
Okay.
raise.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. So I did have a question. I'm sorry I jumped in a little later on this. So what about if we outsource work? If we were to outsource any kind of work, is there any kind of form or any kind of, I guess really the question is form or way of tracking it that would help the accountant at the end of the year? Because not all outsourced work might be like, no, it's not from the same company, but it like obviously may not be from the same company, but some might be like monthly, others might be like here and there. So I just want to make sure like I set things up before we jump into something like that.
Right. So, great question. So for contractors, there's a 1099 that they fill out, and you make sure that's uploaded to QuickBooks. And there's a place, I don't remember offhand, but you click on contractors, you click on add, you fill out their information. And the easiest thing I find to do is to pay them for with ACH, and QuickBooks does that. And what you do is say the contractor sends you an invoice, you can go into QuickBooks, click on that person, and then type in the amount and say, this is the invoice for January. Are there any reimbursements? Like, did they pay for something and you're reimbursing them?
But
And
what if they're not in the country?
um,
Would 1099 still apply, or would it be of perhaps a different form?
yeah, I don't know off the top of my head because I don't deal with international contractors myself. So what I did used to have a client who paid contractors who were overseas, and he had them set up through a software called I think it was Ramp. And so there's an other software specifically for paying contractors overseas and that you can connect to QuickBooks. And then you had a Wise account, which is like an international bank. And through Wise, he could, he just had money in Wise, and then Wise will um, do the currency conversion for you, um, and so that you can pay your contractors in their currency. And so as long as it's connected to QuickBooks, then QuickBooks will keep track of all that during the year. And then at the end of the year, you get you fill out um, the taxes for them. There's a bunch of like filing companies you can use that do W-2s and 1099 contractors if you want to do that. And then it exports to QuickBooks, and then you send them, or you can do it QuickBooks itself, and you send them their paperwork. You need to send them their paperwork. I forget off the top of my head what it's called, but what you get by January 31st. And that you can send it to them, and it'll calculate how much you spent on them for the year, and then you give that to your tax person.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Can you also talk a little bit more? You talked about the why you want to separate funds, and I think you mentioned especially before a certain amount, but can you talk a little bit more about at what point you should really have like a business account versus a personal? I've heard a lot of different things, and I know even in our organization, sometimes people are asking me like, should I set that business bank account right away? So just some feedback on that would be great.
Yeah, I don't think there's a right answer because IRS doesn't say specifically when you make this amount, you have to have a business account. Um, if you say you might have a personal credit card that you can just use for business until you're ready for a business account, you can do that. Um, but there's no right time. Um, what I really want to impress upon people is that there's no rush. So if you are making 20,000 a year, there's not a rush to get a business account. And the IRS isn't really looking at people that small. So yeah, it's individual and like what you can handle. And if you're having trouble keeping track of things, of course you want a business account uh, as soon as you're having trouble. But I would say there's no rush.
I
Awesome.
had a
Thank you.
I had another question.
Sure.
Um, so I don't know if you've already answered this, but in regards to categorizing your transactions, is there like a proper, is there somewhere, I guess for reference purposes, is there somewhere we can go to so that we know that we're categorizing things under the right category or in the right, with the right detail for to make our life easier for our accountants?
Yeah. So in every industry has their own chart of accounts that they use. So I would go to, if I didn't already have it, I'd go to Google and type in chart of accounts for restaurants. and it'll give you a list of like 20 accounts, and it's going to be pretty basic, like your income, sales, equipment. So it's kind of up to you, and it's another thing that's not a rush. Like I've had clients for a while, and we're still updating the chart of accounts. Because things come up. Like I have a client who is doing donations. They're a business owner, and they want a new chart of account for donations. That's okay. That's, that can happen anytime. That's like not stressful. Um, but yeah, there is, like, if you want to look at the uh, as right as it can be is to look at other people's chart of accounts. There's tons of free ones on the internet. It's pretty simple to Google it and just get a list.
Okay, I'll try that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so um, I'm going to talk briefly about what it's like to work with me, and then I'm going to share a link to the poll. And then if you can still stick around, I'm going to go into QuickBooks um, itself and show you around. I got another question. Do these suggestions also apply to landlord-tenant businesses? So that's a good question, because the question of LLC versus S Corp, what I was saying, does not apply to landlord tenant businesses. You want to have an LLC if you have tenants for the legal protection. So you want to keep that. Um, but other than that, you can still use QuickBooks um, if you're doing buildings or different ways to set up QuickBooks, so that if you have several buildings, you can track several buildings in QuickBooks. Um, so it depends how many buildings you have. If you have more than a certain number of buildings, I would say that you would want to use special software. If it's just one or two, then I think QuickBooks is fine.
So just for clarification, were you saying that if you have a landlord-tenant relationship, then you want to, as the landlord, make like an LLC so that legally now you're kind of handling business that way, and then you would have your QuickBooks and everything kind of funneled in that way?
Right. Because what I
Okay,
was saying before is that if you start having a bigger business, that you should look into having an S corp, but that's not true if you are a landlord.
got it.
Um, so a little bit about working with me. The name of my company is Future Proof Accounting. Um, what I provide is monthly bookkeeping services. And so just so you have like a really basic idea of pricing, a lot of people are just like, just tell me how much it is. Okay. If you have a business that is between 0 and $10,000 a month, so up to about 100,000 a year, my prices start at 350 for basic accounting, basic bookkeeping. That's everything that needs to happen so that you can get your financial statements at the end of the month. And usually I train my clients to go get their, if you don't already know, I'll train them to get their statements themselves. And that way you don't have to wait for me. You can just get them, you can look at them anytime. But that's up to the person. So I'm gonna put in the poll so that what the poll is asking is like follow up, like would you want to do this again? What kinds of topics interest you if you want to do this again, that sort of thing. And then I'm going to get ready to share my screen and show QuickBooks if you want to stick around for that. Right, so here's the poll.
And just for those who are still here, we will also send out an email to everyone who registered, and we will have this link in that as well as more information again about Maya, just in case. I know sometimes grabbing it from the chat can be challenging, so we will definitely be sure to send this out as well, because as I mentioned earlier in the onset, you might be like me in that you just really want somebody else to do it. So that'll be great to have Maya's information if you really want to work with her, going forward.
I'm getting a I'm getting a message saying that I can't view the form unless I'm part of the organization.
Which form? Which organization?
It just says on the link that you put on the chat.
Oh,
I
okay.
clicked on it. It says you need permission. This form can only be viewed by users in the owner's organization. So I don't know if you have to change perhaps the setting.
Yeah, Google
The
Forms is tricky. So Maya, you'll have to go in and click the box to allow anybody to actually access it. That's happened to me before too with that.
Okay. Let
But
me
if you
see.
don't somehow get it in the right now, we'll definitely make sure once that's reset that that's emailed out as well.
Okay. Yeah, so it's been a while since I've done a form.
Yeah. Yeah, that Google is so protective. But you'll just have to go into where your forms are and click settings, and then there's like a little box that just says allow, do you want to keep it where only people in your organization can access, and you'll have to just like unclick that.
Make this a quiz. Responses. Um, restrict. Okay. I turned it off.
There we go. So you all should be able to click the link now.
Okay. I appreciate the feedback. Okay, so I'm gonna try to share again.
Okay.
Any other questions before? Okay. So this is a test QuickBooks. So anybody can go into, like, you Google QuickBooks test file, and then it says click on this link if you want to test, and then anybody can get into this. It's free. You don't have to have an account. You just click on it, and this is what happens. So I want to show you first of all where the financial statements are. Um, so I go to reports, and so most people want the profit and loss every month. So you click here, and here's this profit and loss. And so you can see that um, like maybe landscaping, let's say Craig looked up the chart of accounts for landscaping, and he came up with a list, and the list had plants and labor and pest control. Um, so yeah, let's look at since somebody's asking about that, let's look at the chart of accounts. So I clicked on this gear here, and I click on chart of accounts, and you get 250 included in your plan, and most people don't even get up to that. So if you need to add a new one, you click new, and then it'll guide you through how to make a new one. If at any point you choose to add something. So that's the tribe accounts. And then I want to show you something about cash flow management that most people don't know about. It's pretty cool that QuickBooks added somewhat recently. So I'm just going to go to the dashboard and planner. Um, This is the first time, if you click on it the first time, this is what you'll see. And so Craig's not doing too well. He's got negative 3,000 in 2022. Um, and so you can see how much cash you have, how much money is coming in, how much money is going out. And then you can play with it. So you can add, so say you know that you're going to get $500 next Tuesday, you can add that, and then you can see your cash flow report for the future. Um, so that's really cool that QuickBooks has that in it. Has some basic cash flow management modules that you can play around with. And if you play around with it in this screen, it won't affect anything at all. So you can just play with it however you want to. So yeah, going deep into QuickBooks is beyond the scope of this lunch and learn, but I just wanted to show some aspects of it. So yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to talk about, what I want to show, and I don't want to go on for too long because Lita told me not to. So if I'll be here for a few minutes if you have any questions, but thank you for attending, and I really appreciate being asked to speak today.
Awesome. So I am going to remove the spotlight here. And what I'm going to ask for those who are still on the call, as I mentioned, our quarterly trainings, our workshops are always also about networking. Of course, that is literally in the name of our business, Business Crossing Network. So what I would love to do, you can either unmute yourself if you want to put it in the chat, but I'd like to take just a few minutes for those that are here. If you want to share what your business is, and again, Maya, we thank you so much for this training, this education. As I mentioned, will definitely get your information out to everyone who is registered. But I'd like to just open it up. Would anyone like to just share what their business is, and just tell a little bit about what they do? And you never know, someone here might be a client, a partner, or collaboration for you. Michael has a hand raised. Go ahead, Michael.
My name is Mike Coombs. I'm a fractional CFO. So I would take the numbers that Maya prepares. I would reformat them a bit, but my whole focus, the main thing is to isolate what drives cash in your particular business. If I if I isolate those, I'm often able to manipulate them so we can have cash coming in consistently. The end result is that your profitability, business success, all those nice things that you think of becomes more or less an afterthought. All the big companies do this, like an Apple or an Apple or maybe Microsoft. Every big company does this, but it works well for the smaller company as well. And that's it.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Well, definitely, I don't know if you've already put your information in the chat, but please be sure to do that because who is not about wanting more money?
Right.
So appreciate that very much.
And I
Any,
want to mention that Michael and I are doing a presentation next week on, so we're
oh,
going to talk about how we can work together and how everything fits together when you're doing QuickBooks and cash flow.
I love that. And that is a perfect example of something that we push here in DMV Business Crossing Network, the beauty of collaboration, right? Like if more businesses work together, you can build your clientele and really provide solid resources for the community. So I love that. Love that. Love that. I'm going to also be sure to put in the chat information about our upcoming conference, November 9th. we are having a business conference, and this is all about resources. The theme of it is boldly breaking barriers. And it is all about, as entrepreneurs, business owners, how do we break through? How do we help others to break through? So we are super excited about that. This is our third annual one. So we have tons of opportunities. We have vendor opportunities. We have sponsorship opportunities. And of course, we have seating opportunities. So I'm going to just put that information once again in the chat. Definitely check it out. And we hope to see you there. So who else would like to share a little bit about their business? I think I see Olga coming in.
I was like writing it in the chat, but yeah, I'm happy to share. So
Okay.
I was like, I'm Olga. This is Frankie. He's driving. Anyway, so we are F&O Business Solutions. We're known as the business.
Uh-oh. You guys must have hit a dead spot. We're going to give them just a moment to get past the little area. They must be in the DMV because the DMV is loaded with those.
Have isn't always in writing. Did I
There we
lose you?
go.
Oh,
If
I'm
you
so sorry. I was like on a roll too. No, so I was saying that um we we worked for corporate together a total of like 30 years. And so we've seen the ins and outs of many challenges that businesses have. And a lot of times it's just been clear communication. It's been an issue whether we want to be able, a lot of it can be through visuals, videos, photography. So we do videography for businesses. We're not big on weddings. We want to support businesses. So we do that through means of showing off what you do, showing off what you sell, but also internally, let's make sure that your staff understands clearly the passion, the emotion behind what it is that you're trying to do or share with the community. And so besides having that clear communication, we also provide administrative support. So I serve as a virtual assistant on any of the business needs. I've worked with a startup, I've worked with other companies. I have a legal background, working almost 20 years in the field. So supporting different types of niches or businesses has become, I guess, a new norm for me. And so we have an understanding of how we can support businesses in different areas, and we're just here to do that. So that's what we do.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. And I know there were some parts there that got a little in and out, but definitely make sure you all's information is in the chat because when I tell you all that having beautiful visuals and video and all of that for your marketing is amazing. And F&O Business Solutions is so on point with what they do. So definitely be sure to check them out. You'll be amazed at just some of the things that they can do for your business. Again, like they said, on the front facing side, but even if you need that support. So awesome. Awesome. And I see you guys dropping your info in the chat. I love that. I see that Kimberly Hunter joined, and I know, Kimberly, that you missed some of Maya's presentation, but I would love for you two to connect because I think Kimberly has some interest in the whole bookkeeping aspect. So Maya and Kimberly, be sure to connect. Kimberly, if you're able to even drop your information in the chat, or if you even want to come on live and talk about what you do and what your interest might be. Does anyone else want to? I think, oh, I'm sorry, Edward, are you raising your hand? Edward,
Hello.
please continue. Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, appreciate the opportunity. Second, y'all doing a great job putting this together. Um, this is my point of view. I'm just learning over here. I'm just trying to be on the right environment, at the right time, with the right people. Trying to absorb some kind of how do you say knowledge, wisdom. Trying to be on the right path. This is just initiation, but I am on the right path. I guess we're doing something towards our business. So I'm trying to see the structure business, foundation. So that way I can see what parts I need to put together, how they work, how they benefit, and to me, how it's disadvantage. So there's a lot of aspects that I'm trying to learn and put together. So I don't have a business yet established, but I'm learning how to establish and how to run and how to fund it. So I'm just here to learn. I don't have a business yet. I'm just saying because I'm here to learn as well and trying to build a association with some professional individuals, such as this group, and I hope I can learn from y'all.
Awesome and welcome. I always love when people join things like this right from the beginning. In Business Crossing Network, it's been so beautiful to see a number of people join when they were right where you are. And from there, they've opened up actual brick and mortar organizations. They've started their business, all of that. So I will definitely make sure to reach out to you, connect you. There are a few right here on this meeting that would be excellent for you to work with. Frankie and Olga. Ken Mormon was on here earlier. He also helps people right from the beginning of their dream state. So we'll make sure to connect you to the folks that can help you get where you're trying to go. So glad you joined today.
I really appreciate that. So I want to appreciate everybody and their time and be over here to learn. Because I mean, in my personal experience, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for my legacy, for them. So that way they'll have something to rely on. I want them to be independent. You know what I'm saying? Being their own boss. So I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for the family. So that way we can all create something bigger than ourselves. Something and they can last forever. So that's I'm over here learning. I'm just learning this information like a couple months now.
I love it. I love it. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Yes. Anyone else want to share before we wrap up? This has been great. Anyone else want to share where they are in their business? What do you need? Again, you never know. Someone here might have exactly what you need. All right. I think with that, we will go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all. Be sure to click those links, connect. You'll be getting a follow-up email as well with the information. So glad you took the time to join our Lunch and Learn. Hopefully, you can join our business conference in November. If you thought this was great, imagine a full day of business professionals who have been in it for years, providing just resources, information. We're going to have workshops, local vendors, all of that. So hopefully click that link. Hopefully we can see you there. And with that, again, you can reach out directly to me if you have specific questions. But we'll see you next time. And again, thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Maya, as well.
Thank you. I have a question. Can I have a copy of this recording?
Of course, of course. Absolutely.